This 911 Strong podcast is brought to you by our partners at the Police Credit Union of California.
As a financial institution founded by law enforcement for law enforcement and their families over 65 years ago, they have the experience and understanding to help you with all your financial needs,
including exclusive products designed specifically for law enforcement professionals. To become a member today, visit thepolicecu.org. That's the police, the letter C, and the letter U.org.
Or call 800-222-1391 and tell them you heard about them from the 911 Strong podcast.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the 911 Strong podcast. I am Aram Choe, and with me, as always, is our favorite dispatcher Kristen Jauregui.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Kristen, I'm glad to see you on here again because it's been a while. If you are a regular listener to the show, you know that we've taken about a month-long hiatus. Not that we didn't miss you guys and love you guys, but if you follow us on our personal social media, you'll know that we experienced a little bit of tragedy. Well, not a little bit, a lot of tragedy. Two of our good friends and coworkers were tragically killed in the line of duty, and Kristen was on the radio. And I was amongst the first to respond. I ran the command post. And so whatever happened after that was obviously took a toll on us emotionally. And we didn't feel going forward with the podcast episode would be genuine or pay respect to the families and the officers that were involved. And we'd be giving you an inferior product. And, if you've been listening to us for any amount of time, we're genuine and we want to talk about what's on our mind. I just don't think we were emotionally prepared to talk about anything at that point. I think we were feeling a mix of emotions. We were angry, we were sad. But to help us get us through that, we met an incredible group of peer support counselors. If you're listening and your agency's ever been through tragedy, whether you lost an officer or anybody, you'll know what I'm talking about. The support from the law enforcement community, not just at our own agency, but our neighboring agencies was tremendous. And we were fortunate enough to be visited by the Counseling Team International. They mobilized. I mean, that's the best word I could say is if you think about what a command post takes during a critical incident, this was like a emotional peer support command post. The Counseling Team International just mobilized and they brought in everybody. And we had people I'd never seen before that just came up to us and gave us hugs and told us they were there for us. There was a lot of dogs, emotional support dogs. But I thought that was tremendous. And you got a lot of experience with that, Kristen. You were on the peer support side as well. But I wanted to talk about that. I know people want to eventually hear us talk about what we went through as far as the shooting goes. But what I want to talk about right now is the peer support group, because we wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for some of the therapy and group sessions that the Counseling Team International provided for us. And with us from the Counseling Team International is Gabe Lira. Gabe Lira is a sergeant with a local Southern California police agency, about 10 days from retiring.
Yes.
All right. Well, congratulations. But Gabe, I wanted to publicly thank you and your team for the tremendous response and the continued support. You guys are tremendous. What goes into a rollout like that? I mean, do you get notified and then you just send a group text or?
So first of all, good morning, everyone, or afternoon. And so several years ago, we started our peer support team out of a tragedy we had at our department. We experienced a line of duty death and we didn't know what to do. So we eventually created our own peer support team. And then as time went by and we started experiencing other traumas, and we didn't have anyone outside of our agency to lean on. And slowly but surely, we started realizing there are other agencies that had the same thing. We just didn't know about each other. So we started organizing as a group, and the group just grew bigger and bigger and bigger. So now we do have a common chat thread that we use. And normally what ends up happening is when an agency experiences trauma and it's above what they believe they can handle themselves, then they will either reach out to me or one of the other folks on our thread, or they reach out to one of the clinicians. If they reach out to one of the clinicians, they will notify us either way. And once the clinicians say they need peer support, then we mobilize and we just start going to work and trying to meet the need for that agency. And depending on the type of tragedy or the size of agency, it may be a smaller response or it could be a very large response.
That's incredible. I mean, it happened really fast. I felt like, for the first 3 days, I wasn't really anywhere near the station. I was out at the command post. As Kristen knows, it wasn't until Thursday that the shooting was a Tuesday, and Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday night, I was finally ordered to go home. And on my way home, I didn't even stop by the station. I had my unit there, and I just headed towards home. And Kristen and her husband told me to come over, and we were going to have our own little peer support group. And maybe we'll get into a little bit about what we did that night. But there was a lot of venting, a lot of probably some things that I don't know would be inappropriate for a therapy. But the important thing is we were together, we're helping each other out, and my wife even drove down, and it was a good time for us. Do you find that in your experience, officers tend to gravitate towards other officers or people within that world to vent to?
Yes. So granted, there are some coping skills that we don't encourage right away. And I did hear about your gathering. But the biggest thing, the biggest thing is that we come together and we figure out how to support each other through this. And so a lot of times we know, being on a regional peer support team, that when we go into your station, or that you don't know us, and it's at first kind of hard for you to lean on us or trust that we're here to take care of you. So we do end up finding a lot of these little smaller groups that kind of meet on the side, and we're not against that. We really encourage you to find whatever method you think is appropriate to process this trauma, aside from drinking, but it does happen. And we're not going to sit here and say that no one should drink ever at all. We're just trying to teach you, or hopefully impart upon you, the wisdom of when it is appropriate to drink. So we're going to encourage any kind of physical activity. We're going to encourage sleep, but if you want to get together as a group and either just talk and vent, or, because venting is probably anger, and anger is a very valid emotion after a traumatic event like this. So we're going to encourage you to get together, whichever way you can, hopefully with us present, so we can help you get through that. But if not, and you're on your own and you're processing as a group, that's just as good. You're going to figure out how to get through that. You're going to encourage each other to hopefully get some sleep, and maybe go for a jog, maybe you go to work out, maybe you go to the movies, maybe have a get together, maybe do something like what Kristen did, and you go shooting later on, or whatever it may be that you think is going to help you.
You bring up a good point, Gabe. For me, I think I had a lot of that night where the bottles came out. I don't want to encourage anybody to go and do that. For me, I think I needed it that night, and I was amongst some friends that were going to keep me responsible. But you're probably right. I think it was probably too soon for that. Kristen did some really healthy things. Kristen's big in the fitness world, and she likes to do things that put her out of her comfort zone. And one of the things that you recently did, Kristen, is you had an opportunity to go out with Sheepdog Response, Tim Kennedy's company, and do some shoot training. And for you, does that make you feel, does it take your focus off of things? Because now you're out of your comfort zone. I know you're more comfortable now with shooting than you were maybe a few months ago, but you're doing quite a few of these classes now.
Yeah, I'm doing more of them. I think more for myself, also, obviously, but then a little bit because I get nudges from Danny. And so with this Sheepdog Response one, I was really intimidated to go because there are a bunch of like military guys that are running it, and obviously really
legit
really
badasses.
Yeah, like the stuff they've been through is insane. And I just feel very like you said, I guess, intimidated to be around those types of shooters. And the female front isn't too much with the groups that I've been to, so it's just me and one other female. And this one was an all day one. Like I've done a few hours, but this one was from 8 to 4 and it was the whole time. We only took like a half-hour break to eat and that was it.
Right.
And they had they had us like doing all these different kinds of shooting. Like I'm used to like now I'm used to like kind of walking and shooting or kind of running up and then taking a few shots. But oh my gosh, these guys, like they had me. We started from a standing, went to a squat, all while shooting. Standing, squat, on your knees, on prone, on the side, and then I can't remember what it's called. They'd probably kill me right now because I don't know what it's called, but it's like laying to the side with like your top leg over and like shooting from the ground. So your head's like basically resting on the ground shooting and all that. And then doing it all over again and everybody's watching you. And then we did another one of shooting behind cover and they're like yelling at you to shoot these, these targets in certain areas and all that stuff. So that was a little bit completely out of my comfort zone. But yeah, I've just been saying yes to a lot more things that come my way because, it was a reminder that life is short and it can be taken away in seconds. And so if I really don't have a reason to say no to something, aside from me just being fearful or intimidated, then I'm going to say yes to it kind of thing. So it was neat. I do realize I need to buy some more equipment because I was using Danny's like belts and his like you guys know I suck at terms, so whatever holds the I sound like such a new person. Whatever holds the bullets, come on, the magazine holder.
Kristen,
I
basic
know
nomenclature.
I'm such a ditz when it comes to this stuff, but anyhow, whatever holds the magazines, right? Like
magazine pouches.
My Glock, okay, my magazines are smaller than the one that Danny has, or I'm sorry, of the SIG. And for whatever one he has, it's smaller than for his. So I'm like running around and my crap is falling out while I'm running and rolling on the ground and they're yelling at me. I'm like, this isn't my belt. This isn't my tools. I'm sorry.
We're going to have to send you over to, actually, I have been meaning to go over to ProForce over in Brea anyway. But maybe we'll make a date night out of it because I know for me, it's one of the funnest things to do is buy police equipment, firearm equipment. But no, I was just talking to Mikey. She's a manager over at ProForce, and we were talking about how, remember a couple of years ago, I think when we all went last, the lines were crazy. It's not that way anymore. They hired a lot more staff. And if you don't know, their staff are made up of either ex-cops or ex-military. So it's not like you would walk into, I don't know, like one of these mega stores that sells fishing rods and, smokers and barbecue items and ask them, hey, what do you call these things that hold bullets? And I don't know. You're going to be amongst.
I didn't realize that ProForce hired all prior first responders. I didn't know that.
Yep. First responders and military. Yeah. That's what they look for. Oh, wow. They're a big supporter of law enforcement and military. As a matter of fact, if you don't know, if our listeners who don't know about ProForce is a gun store, but they sell police gun equipment as well. But they're exclusive to law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, veterans. So it's not like you're walking into it, like for the personal reasons why I don't like going to public ranges, because you're with people that may not know gun safety. When you walk into the store, you're going to be around people that are in your world, people that know how to handle firearms safely, people that are in that space, which is why I love going out there. And then I don't mind feeling like someone that goes in and doesn't know what I'm talking about, because I don't know every piece of nomenclature on a gun or, like the springs on a magazine that need to be replaced. I can just say that to these guys at the counter, and these guys have all been through training that ProForce puts them through, and they know exactly what you're talking about. So Kristen can go in and say, hey, that thing that holds the bullets and that thing, all that. And
I know. Sorry.
Like that commercial, I think it's a Midas commercial, or I don't know what's wrong with my car, but it makes this vroom, vroom, and the mechanic's like,
that's me.
You'll go in there and ProForce knows what you're talking about. But yeah, no, as a matter of fact, she told me about their new feature. You can go on their website. I think it's proforceonline.com. Yeah, proforceonline.com. And you can actually make an appointment now. So instead of driving to the store, and pulling a number like you used to do over at the butcher counter at the grocery store. You go
Yeah.
in, you can
In
still
your
do that
car.
if you want. Yeah. But you can go there and make an appointment and go, figure out what time you need to be there, go in, and they're waiting for you, which I love now. But either way, it's worth the wait even if there is a wait. But there hasn't been. I've had some friends visit lately and they say that the experience is totally different. Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
military personnel, just bring your ID. Veterans, bring your DD-14, and you're good to go.
All right.
So
Well, I'll
Gabe,
have
when
to
you
go over
retire,
there.
yeah, and when Gabe retires in 10 years, you have your retirement badge. That's good to go. So
Yeah, but believe me, I'm going to stop by there in a couple of days. I was just waiting for to hear what you just said, and that is that they hired some more folks.
oh
You
yeah,
can actually make an appointment online. That the wait time is a lot shorter because I know the last time I went there, it was probably right after COVID when they opened up, and
right,
yeah, there was some significant wait time. So I'm glad that
yeah.
that they've worked on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can thank the president. The president has made it to where people want guns again.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
Proforce anticipates all that stuff. They do a really good job on the back end, making sure that the final product to the customers delivered accurately and timely. So they knew that was one of the concerns was the wait time. So if I'm an owner of a company, what am I going to do if I want to keep my customers happy? Is I'm going to fix that problem, and it sounds like they did.
Right on.
So, but anyways, moving forward, after our date at Proforce, when we get you your little holder that holds a thingy that holds the bullets, that's a technical term. I think what I find is when we do our shooting dates is my mind is all about that. It's like all these other peripheral problems that we might have kind of disappear because
Yeah.
it's therapeutic for me. And I like, even on a hot day, just feeling the sweat drip down my back. And that experience there puts me out of whatever problems I was in before. And
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's
the
important.
distraction, I think. Is
Yeah, no, that's a good word.
kind of
Yeah.
nice.
Gabe, do you think that's something that's important for people in our world to have something like a distraction to lean on?
Absolutely. And eventually those become just your hobbies, right? And that becomes your positive coping skill. So
Mhm.
before it may have been just a distraction and it helps you take your mind off of it, but eventually that becomes the thing you like to do. It kind of brings you
Mhm.
some peace.
Mm.
Shooting a gun brings you some peace. How odd, but it doesn't matter. It's like some of us like to go fishing, some of us like to go horseback riding, some people like to go shooting. So eventually becomes a hobby, and that is your escape, that is your out, and that is your way of saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to put like you said, all those exterior stressors aside, and I'm gonna go out and have some me time.
Yeah.
And your me time is at the range. My me time is woodworking or fishing. So I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely great that you find something to do that's away from work.
Yeah.
When you mentioned me time, I was kind of reluctant. I felt like those first 72 hours were crucial, that I gave everything I had to the agency, to the families. I felt like the opposite of me time. I felt like I had to give everything there. Do you get that a lot from people? I mean, it is kind of important to be involved, but at the same time, it's like tearing people away from. I basically got ordered to leave the station or leave to go to home. Do you find that a lot?
Yeah, I think ordered Kristen to go home and not come back, because
Okay.
we feel the need to be there, right?
Yeah.
This is like a lot of times we don't know what to do, and the only
Mhm.
thing that makes us feel good is to be there.
Right.
But we're sacrificing a lot of things, and it's our sleep and it's our family,
Mm.
right? And so our families a lot of times are very understanding, but at the same token, our families are scared and they're nervous and they're hurting too, because they realize that this is your coworker or your friend or whomever. And so we're kind of ignoring their feelings because we're taking care of ours and our coworkers, right? And so a lot of times I don't think we realize how much it may impact our family. So we call it
Mhm.
self-care. It is important to take that time out and take care of yourselves. And one of the biggest things you can do for self-care during something like that is sleep.
Mm.
And it's really hard to sleep if you're at the stations. Like I had told Kristen that day, like, go home, go to sleep. And I know she was having a hard time with that. Like, just go home. And if nothing else, just be home.
Yeah.
And don't come back here unless you absolutely have to. Not because you want to or you feel a need to. Like, if something's
Mhm.
actually happening, then come on back. And that's kind of the nice thing about regional peer support. We run into this a lot, is that we're asking you to trust us. Like
Yeah.
I had told Kristen that day, I said, hey, look, if something happens, I'll call you. If something important is happening or going on, I will call you. Other than that, like, go home. If you want to come back in 10 hours, cool. Just go home. get some sleep, take care
Yeah.
of yourself, try to do something, but to not think about this, whether it's, go play with the animals, go veg out on some TV or whatever it may be. Just stay away from here for at least 10 hours, try to get some sleep, take care of yourselves, get some food, hydrate. And if I promise you, if something seriously goes on, I will call you. And I do that a lot with some folks because they're just, we're asking a lot. We're asking you to trust us. We're going to take care of your agency, but we want you to take care of yourself. And you didn't call us to take care of this so that you could sit here every day of every minute. So go home, get some rest, take care of yourself. When you're ready, come on back.
That's tremendous. And I'm sure you can have some people receptive to the idea. Like Kristen obviously had a prior relationship with you and your organization. Someone like me who had a peripheral understanding of your organization, it was still unfamiliar to me. And so I avoided you guys. Admittedly, I saw everybody in our break room and our briefing rooms and the hallways just kind of lining up there. And they were, they did the thing that I guess typically you would do if you don't know someone. You would give the head nod and a smile, and I do the same thing, and that was the extent of it. Would walk to where I needed to go and walk back, and because I was avoiding you guys like the plague. And I believe it was Jen who finally sent me a text message a couple days into it and said, "I need to talk to you." I said, "Who's this?" And this is Jen from the peer support group. I was given your phone numbers. We need to talk. So I said, okay. And so I talked. And even in that room, I was in a room of another group of people they grouped us up in, and I stayed quiet. And I think I made a couple jokes in there. And then she really keyed in on that afterwards and asked me to stick around and said, "Hey, you talked, but you didn't talk. And it's not my goal to make everybody cry in here, but it's my goal to get you to talk." And she handed me a bottle of water. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me, because not that I was thirsty. I didn't even think I was thirsty, but I opened that bottle of water. Instead of taking a sip, I actually downed that whole thing. And she recognized the fact that I had some, I forget what term she used, but I was physically outwardly expressing my body's needs. So I involuntarily just quaffed that entire bottle without even thinking about it. And she said, "That's my body telling me I have some personal needs." And then that opened up the door for us to chat. Actually, I thought that was pretty neat. You guys have some pretty sneaky ways to get us to talk.
So we know that if we bring food, you open the door for us. Because if nothing else, people want food, right?
Yes.
And we realize how awkward it is for everyone there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks that are on that regional peer support team is made up of individual peer support teams from other agencies.
Right.
And there are team members from those other agencies who would rather not do the regional response because they just feel really awkward going into somebody else's house during a traumatic incident and then trying to engage with that person. So it's not easy for you, and often it's not easy for us. We just try to figure out how to make that a little more organic, a little less confrontational. Sometimes it's doing just what Jen did, and that's handing you a bottle of water. And again, we don't try to make everyone talk. We're just trying to get you to understand that one, we're all going through the same thing. We're all experiencing some level of trauma that we're all trying to process. And a lot of times, if we can just get you in a group so that you can see how others are feeling, you're going to realize you're not alone.
Right.
You're going to realize that you're not the only one going through this. And you're going to realize that you're not the only one who looks at us and tries to avoid us. But we kind of key on those things, right? Because even during really traumatic times, people will still be cordial.
Yes.
So when you find the folks that are kind of just being a little standoffish, just like you said, hi or a nod and a walk away, you realize that they're probably struggling with what happened, and now compounded by these strangers being in their house.
Yeah.
So we kind of keep an eye, and then if it seems like they're opening up with their group on their own, we'll probably leave it alone. But if it seems like they're kind of still isolating even within their own group, then we kind of start making notes of that, and eventually at some point we'll try to engage with you in some kind of dialogue.
Yeah. I think for me, it was, I went through some personal tragedy. It still feels recent, but I think the first thing that really impacted me was in 2013, and it repeated itself in 2015. And then, Kristen knows I still have a hard time with those issues. And I just think I wasn't ready to get emotional again. It wasn't really, I guess work is a place for me where I need to be strong. And I just wasn't ready to do that at work. Chris, and now I know that Gabe knows, but outside of work, I have no problem letting it down, especially if I'm with close friends. And I'll let it go. I think I let too much go. Kristen reminded me that we must be really good friends because I said some things about Kristen and Danny that I probably shouldn't have. But
It's okay. It's all part of release. It's all right.
Oh man, everything was releasing. I had boogers on shirt the next day. I was like, what the hell did I do? But but at work it's a different scenario. So I think that's why I think when I got that text message from Jen, I was at home. I was more willing to respond to that than if I was at work. At work, if I had gotten that, I'm sure I would have been involved in some tasks. I would have, clicked it off and put it in my pocket and maybe forgot about it. But yeah, I mean, I know you guys. You just testified to the fact that you guys recognize the standoffishness and will leave that alone. But I think in my case, a little bit more persistence actually helped. And then, when we saw them over at the memorial service, we totally felt comfortable with them. At least me and my small circle of friends at work talked about how we were so used to seeing them around the station now. Even after just a few days, it became more familiar, more comfortable, and seeing them there just seemed natural. So as far as I'm concerned, they're going to be part of the family forever. If I see them at the station tomorrow, that's not going to be awkward. It's going to be, hey, welcome home. So yeah, you guys do a really good job of that.
Yeah. So when we're noticing the isolation, we're not going to just forget about it. We're just going to kind of let it go for a little bit. And at some point, like I was talking with Kristen and Melissa, and saying, hey, your peers are the best gauge of what you're going through. They know you better than we do, right? So that's one of the things we ask them to do is like, hey, if you notice someone who's really struggling because they're different than they normally are, then let us know. And at some point, if we can, we'll pull them aside and we'll talk with them. And I wasn't always this way. I was before our first tragedy. I was like you, but I was like you even at home. So I was Mr. No Emotions. I remember yelling at one of my coworkers for crying at the hospital when our officer passed away. I literally yelled at him like, "Who do you think you are? You don't get to cry, dude. You're a cop. You're a man. Like, we don't cry. Like, suck it up." And we laugh to this day. We laugh about that because now I'm so much different. Now I realize that crying isn't weakness. That emotion isn't weakness. Now I realize that first of all, you know how strong you have to be able to let your emotions show in public. That takes a tremendous amount of strength to say, I don't care what you think. I don't really care. I know who I am. And right now I'm going to process this. I'm going to let it out. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go back to being, who I am. And that takes more strength than bottling it up, because the reason why we bottle it up is because we're afraid of what others may think about us if we show some emotion. So the person who says, I don't care, you think whatever you want, I don't care, then you're like, man. So for some guys, they may see weakness, but for a lot of us who now realize, we see strength, and we're trying to really get that message across and change our culture within the first responder world period. That it's okay to have an emotional response to a tragic incident.
Well, so what was it that changed you? Because I mean, you're 10 days from retirement. You're an OG. I look at you and your goatee. You remind me a lot of some of our OG guys here that are probably from that same school of thought that you used to have, where hey, we signed with we don't have time to be emotional. We're cops. Be a man. That was something that was common when I was coming through the ranks. But what was the catalyst for you to change? What was there a specific event, or did you just go to classes, or?
No, I think a lot of it was education, right? I think a lot of it was just my being naive. So I had noticed over the years how many of our coworkers or peers leave the profession just loathing the department, like loathing the administration, like just the whole job in general. And you try to figure out, like, why does everybody leave this place hating it? Like they can't wait to leave. They're MFing the place on the way out the door, whether it's the citizens or the administration, whatever it may be. And you're like, why is everyone just so sour? And then you start seeing the folks that are having the health issues with heart attacks and stress. And yeah, you can attribute a lot of that to poor eating, but all of that is also due to poor sleep habits, probably, bad drinking, a lot of drinking. And then you start realizing that this job is affecting them. That the reason why everyone just leaves so jaded is because, or so angry, is because over the years, they have compartmentalized so much so much trauma, so many feelings, so many raw emotions, whether it's from the public or whether it's from the administration. They've never processed anything. And so as it, their cup is full and it's just spilling over and spilling over. And so those are the folks that you see. And so I was like just kind of curious about that. And I took on the role of our team coordinator reluctantly, but I still took it on. But the more I started, the more education I received in this area, the more I started putting things together, like, oh, okay, now I get why these guys are so angry. Now I realize the health conditions. Now I realize what poor sleeping patterns can do to us. I realize what working, a 612 and a half can do, or working, 14 out of the last 20 days can do to us. And the more involved I got, the more I started realizing, and I got a little too close to that rabbit hole, and then I just fell in.
Yeah.
And started spiraling out of control on the wellness track.
Well, that's good.
That's awesome.
You recognize that, and I know Kristen can testify to this. You talk about the amount of days that we are all working, and working 16 out of 20 days, how unhealthy that is. But a lot of agencies are facing the fact that they have to. We're having a hard time hiring. We can't keep up with our attrition. People are leaving the job at faster rates than any time in history, and we just can't hire qualified individuals. And right now, like at our department, we're down about 30 bodies. And from the time I started back in when I came to El Monte, or my agency, in 04, and we had like 170 officers back then. So we're like 70 officers down now compared to that. So we're all having to pick up the slack and do more. Our patrol guys are taxed. Our dispatchers are taxed. So when you can't avoid that, and we know, there are classes, law enforcement related classes, that testify to the fact that that's not healthy, yet we ignore that and push forward. What can we do to mitigate that? Do we educate the agencies, or?
It's tough because I just had this conversation with one of the clinicians, and the proper thing to do, which is not popular in our profession, is if you recognize that Officer A has now worked 10 days straight and Officer A needs a break, give Officer A a break. Like, don't let Officer A take that shift. And Officer A is going to do that, right? But if Officer A comes and says, "Hey, look, I'm tired, man. I just need a couple days off," like, instead of making them feel bad and giving them a guilt trip for taking those couple days off, like, respect that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was running one of our smaller units last few years I was there or here, and one of the guys that I brought onto the team normally takes a 1 month vacation every year. Him and his wife take a 1 month vacation, and I told him when he was going to put it on the team, I said, "Hey, you probably can't take a 1 month vacation because we're a small unit, and to lose that one body for a month is you feel being down a body." And I know from classes I've taken in the past about wellness that, they encourage you to take at least 2 weeks off, because your first week is just like you're sleeping. And the second week is actually more towards the recovery and why you're there. Like, you're now starting to feel better about being a human being. So I said, "Look, I might be able to give you like 10 days, but I can't give you 3 weeks." And so he said, "No problem." I had a feeling that was what's going to happen. Like, I knew that. So here he comes about a year later. He's like, "Hey, I know you're going to say no to this, but I'm going to give you a 1 month request anyway. But that way my wife can't get mad at me and say I didn't ask. But I know you're going to say no." And I said, "Yeah, you know what, dude? I'm going to feel the pain of you being gone for a month, but I'm going to approve that." He goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, because I think it's important that you take that time out with your family. And I think it's important that you have time to recover and recuperate from work.
Right.
So as much as I might feel the pain if you've been gone for a month, we'll figure it out. We'll get through it, and take your time off." And that's what we should do as an organization. Like, yes, we're going to feel that pain. Yeah, we're going to suffer because we're down a body. But at the same token, it is healthy for that one person to get a couple days rest,
Yeah.
or to take 3 days off and recover from. We've asked a lot, so let's return the favor. You've been here for 14 straight days. Let me return the favor by giving you 3 days off. Fine. They're like, "Yeah, it sucks, but like always, we'll figure it out."
Yeah, I agree with that. So,
If we don't do it now, well, if we don't pay that now, we'll pay it later. Because if we keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, at some point you're going to break, medically break, and now you're going to be gone for 6 months. because you either suffer a heart attack or you suffer a stroke, or now you're half tired driving around at night, a patrol car, or daytime, you end up crashing your car. Your judgment is impaired due to a lack of sleep, and you make bad decisions and you get hurt. And now we are down another body
Mhm.
for an extended period of time now because we didn't want to do without you for 2 days. So either pay now and let that person take the time, or pay later.
Yeah, and sometimes it'll be more later than it would be now anyways, like you said, because now they're off for the 6 months or they medically retire and now you're paying their medical retirement. Now you have to hire a new body to replace them and with all of their benefits and everything too. And they just don't look out into the future for that kind of thing, unfortunately.
I think we're trying to build resiliency, and we're trying to, one of the best marketing tools you could have during times like right now, even though money is important to all of us, right, is that when your employees rave about how much the department cares for them.
Hmm.
And I know we say it a lot, right? We're a family and we love you. We're going to take care of you. Our most important asset is our employees. But a lot of times it's just fluff.
Mhm.
So when you actually have employees that saying, yes, our administration really believes in that. They really do care about us. They are worried about resiliency and taking care of us. That's a huge selling point when you're recruiting outside people. Like, yes, you can come in here and you can work until you can't stand anymore. You can work 20 days straight if you wanted to. But at the same token, if you wanted to take 4 or 5 days off, they don't have a problem with that either. So when you
Mhm.
can start building that kind of a culture, especially the ones that your employees are selling, you're gonna fare a lot better.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I agree with you there. But what if you're part of an agency that's just rocking and rolling, right? You're from the time you log on to the time you shift over is you're humping, and you feel it in those 3 days. And what if some people are cut out for that, right? Some people come out. Some people are built for I don't want to say ghetto agencies, but rock and rolling agencies, and some people aren't. They're more um, they're built for be a less active agency. And I would argue that the person that is built for the slower agency, if they find themselves coming to a rock and rolling agency, they're just going to feel it at the end of their 3 regular days. How do you
Mhm.
put out an expectation for your personnel when everybody's an individual? You know what I mean? Everybody copes differently.
Well, I think that's a really kind of incumbent upon the supervisor to realize that he has that person, and then where can we make him most effective, or her? Where can we make that employee most effective? Is it going to be running call to call to call? No. Maybe you're an agency that has officers at the front desk and you realize they're better suited for that spot. It's like, hey, look it,
Mhm.
man, I don't want to take you out the road, but we're pretty busy lately, and I know that's kind of not your thing. I want to put you at the front desk, and that guy who's at the front desk who loves to rock and roll, go ahead and put that person out in the field, because I know a lot of agencies, most people don't want to work that front desk.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like almost like punishment if you have to go there.
Yeah.
So let's just take the person who maybe wants to be there and have them do
Yeah.
that. We have a lot of little small ancillary things that come up that are time consuming, small but tedious, like e-scars or APSs or whatever, so you can task that person with
Mm.
those smaller things. Maybe they're the guy who goes and does the warrant pickup, or the person who does the warrant pickup 2 cities over, or the next county over. So you find ways to utilize their slower pace, which we oftentimes do with our more senior officers who are like, hey man, I got 22 years in the job. I'm still pushing the black and white, and
Yeah.
I'm one call at I do one call at a time, and I write my report. When I'm done with that report, then I go 10-8. You're like, we
Yeah.
got like 30 calls holding. Oh, we all know that guy, huh? Or gal.
We all
Yeah.
have them. Yeah.
So we think that person becomes our warrant pickup person, or that one becomes our e-scar person, or our APS person. So we start utilizing them in those areas where they can kind of work at their own pace,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it's just, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it. And maybe, you can pull that person aside and talk to them, but that's a little tough. You can encourage them to leave. That's a little tough. I mean, everyone has a value, and you just
Mhm.
kind of realize where their value's at, and don't hold it against them,
Right.
because that 1-year cop doesn't want to go do the warrant pickup. He wants to rock and roll.
Right.
Mhm.
That 2-year cop doesn't want to sit at the front desk and then, roll e-scars. He wants to rock and roll. So let's put the guy who'd rather work at a slower pace, someplace that's more advantageous for them, and put the folks that want to hustle in the area where they can hustle. And we're all different, right? Some people are like, well, let's go ahead and banish them to the detective bureau, but that doesn't help the detective bureau out any. Let's banish them to community affairs, but they're going to take their pace wherever they go. They're going to take that pace with them. So that may not be, good for the other bureau, but I think it's how you sell it, right? You can sell it in a way where it makes them feel like they're doing a service that's needed and not make them feel like they're slugs. And at the same token, I think you find it in some satisfaction with yourself that you handle that properly. Now, maybe you don't still like this person's pace, but you focus on what you can fix and don't focus on what you can't fix. If you can't fix their pace, then you can all fix where they're at. So I think we just kind of get stuck sometimes we get a little irritated. We don't want to get past that part that's really bothering us, but that doesn't help you because now you're creating your own stress. So when we're trying to figure out how to relieve our stress, don't do things that are going to create stress for yourself.
Right.
I guess that causes our supervisors to have to work, right? They have to actually sit there and evaluate our personnel and recognize what's good. And we have. I'm sure in your career you've seen the same thing. Yeah, we have some sergeants that you see them at briefing and you don't see them again, and then you have other sergeants that are the exact opposite, where they are there at every call, micromanaging. We have. I'm sure you agree with me. Our people today, the people that we hire today, the newer officers, the ones that in California have to work till they're 57 and a half. I think they're going to have a much harder time. I don't think they've got, and we may have heard the same thing from the OGs when we were coming up, but it just seems like it's a repeating theme for every new officer. It's like this new generation, this new generation, this new generation, that. Are we just saying that because they didn't? Because now we're the older people at the agencies, the more experienced people, or is this something that's a reality today? Are our new officers today just not as emotionally and physically equipped as we used to be?
No, I think it's easy to blame others because it's easy to blame myself because I think there is a value in the fact that they are a little more open to emotion than we were, right? So they're not going to go through the same, they're not going to carry the same kind of baggage that I did. I'm realizing that the way we used to do it was maybe wrong or needed some change. What's in front of me is the change, but I don't want to accept that change. So I'm going to keep perpetuating what I said was wrong, and I'm going to change it at my pace. So I think for a lot of those of us who've been around for a while, instead of finding the fault in that new person, finding the value in them. What are they doing that is right? So maybe look at we've worked 14 days straight. We've run 30 calls per shift per car. How's that working out for us? So maybe the one call at a time, let the calls hold, let them stack. I'm going to work at my pace. Maybe that's a better mentality. Well, those guys are going home happier. We see they're going like, look at all these young guys. They're taking all this time off. Like, oh my God, I was 5 years on the job before I took a day off. Oh, I never do this, or I don't ever call in sick and take. Oh my God, snowflakes. You take personal days now. Okay, well, you're right. We didn't do any of that way back when.
All right.
How'd that work out for us?
Right.
Yep.
So now we have guys that are actually using their time off, that are taking some personal days when they feel like they need it, and we sit here and we judge them. But at the same token, they're not the ones that are MF in the department. And they aren't the ones that are going out on strokes and heart attacks right now. Maybe it's because they're young, and maybe they won't down the road because they're creating their own resiliency. They're saying, I'm not letting this job define me. I decide who I am. This job does not decide who I am. And so many of us are so loyal to the department. We want to be there so much that we let that job define us. And then when we're at home, we have that FOMO, so we don't want to be at home. We want to be at work because, the big one's going to happen, and I want to be there when it happens. So I think there's a lot to learn. And don't get me wrong, I had a hard time with these new kids when they first started, especially when I would send somebody out to get an answer, and they go to their phone and they pull up the internet and find the answer like right then and there. I'm like, oh, first of all, I never thought about that. Never thought about that one. But secondly, I was trying to get rid of you, stupid. Go away.
I guess we can go ahead. I was going to say,
there's a lot we can learn.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's a lot we can learn from firefighters as well.
Yes.
I don't know what the stat is, what the life expectancy of a firefighter after the job, but compared to cops. But when we go to the same calls together, they look so much more relaxed, right? Officers have this higher sense of awareness, hyper vigilance. And then you see the firefighters come out and their shirts are untucked. They've got their sunglasses on and their hair is disheveled because they just finished working out or taking a nap. But that attitude, that more, I don't know, I don't want to say relaxed because they do a good job out there, but more, and I also don't want to say they don't care, but they don't put a lot of the, as much baggage or weight on a call as I think as officers do. So I think we can maybe all take a lesson from that. Maybe we can all come in a little bit less hyper vigilant. But then the argument to that antithesis is people aren't there trying to kill firefighters. People are out there trying to kill cops. So we have that on our shoulders as well. I mean, it just sounds like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, the hypervigilance for us is very necessary at work. The problem is we can't turn it off when we go home, and we become hypervigilant at home, and that's kind of where it hurts us at, right? So, working in wellness now with first responders for several years now, I've realized that our firefighters are hurting just as bad as we are.
Okay.
That they are having as much, they're suffering as much PTSD from the trauma they deal with as we are. We're kind of we're a little bit luckier than they are. For us, if patrol becomes too much, you can test and leave patrol. You go to the detective bureau, you go to motors, you go to community affairs, so you can leave patrol. You can get away from the day-to-day trauma, right? Firefighters don't get to do. For the majority of their career, they're going to be on a rig at a firehouse responding to those calls. Yeah, there are some agencies that have some office jobs, but even those agencies, compared to the amount of manpower they have, or firefighters, they don't have enough. They can't just say, I'm leaving. I'm testing. I'm going to go work arson. I'm leaving. I'm going to go work, whatever. I'm going to work training. For the majority of them, they spend the majority of their career basically in patrol. So they do have a little bit more of a relaxed appearance when they roll on the call, but they have a lot of trauma that stacks up. And I don't know what their survival or expectancy is after they retire, but I can tell you that they have a higher suicide rate than police officers do.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. It took me a while to figure that one out, but yes, and a lot of it, we don't know the exact numbers because a lot of it goes unreported. And a lot for first responders, period, but especially for fire, it's underreported because the shame of a suicide.
That's incredible. I mean, it's just hearing that stat, it's apparent that we all carry our own types of baggage. I think what we've learned over the last 45 minutes that we've been chatting is if you've got whatever you got bottled up inside, it needs to come out. It becomes unhealthy. It starts to fester. And, it's just hard for people like us who didn't come up learning that. We came up learning you got to be tough, got to have a thick skin. You can't do this job without a thick skin. But here we are in 2022 where we're learning that that's just not healthy. And as I'm getting closer to the end of my career, I've got about another 5 or 10 years or so. It's becoming more apparent for me, at least, that I need to be able to enjoy my retirement. What's the point of getting there if I can't enjoy it? And
well, that's one of the things I always say when I talk to folks. I'm like, so we hired on in the first responder world period, put 30 years into our career toward that pension, so that we can now get 30 years out of our pension. Right? I'm like, no one signed up for the job saying I want to put 30 years into my pension, but I only really want 6 months out of it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to sign up for 30 years, but I'm going to be cool with maybe about between 3 and 5 years out of my pension. And after that, I'm willing to die. None of us, so when you hit that pension world, it takes about 12 years for you to use up all of your investment. After that, you're living on your pensions investment. You're living on house money.
Right.
So I always tell everybody, hey, I want to live on house money.
Yes.
I want to live on house money for a long time, right? Because that tells me that I went well past, my investment. And if you don't take care of yourself mentally, then you're going to retire mentally unhealthy. And my analogy on that is the person who doesn't take care of themselves mentally is like that person who goes to the gym and only works chest and never works legs.
Right.
So it's not symmetrical, right? You want to have a symmetrical body. You want to have a strong core, strong upper body, strong lower body, right? the same thing with our mental wellness. If we don't take care of ourselves mentally, yeah, you might leave this place physically healthy, but you'll be mentally unhealthy and you're going to struggle in retirement. And so that's why we're saying, hey, get that out of you. Talk to somebody, talk to your peer support teams. Don't be afraid to call a clinician, especially a very culturally competent clinician. And that's the one thing we liked about TCTI. And that's why I started working with them so much, is they understand the first responder world. They understand what you're going through. They understand shift work, and they understand the amount of trauma you see in a day or in a week or in a month. You don't have to explain why you went to a dead body, why you went to a fatal TC.
Right.
They know all these things. They understand how your job affects your family and your family life. And so that's important that you talk to somebody and start realizing that it's okay to take some time off. It's okay to talk about the things that are bothering you. And then maybe if we start talking about some of these things, then maybe we won't be so angry at the administration, because we have to blame somebody. And I can't blame my own inadequacies. So I'm going to blame the boss for making me come to work. But I'm the idiot who actually signed up for those 2 overtime shifts. I'm just trying to figure out why you're mad at me because I didn't ask for my regular day off and you said no.
Right.
So we get mad at the boss.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's important for us to talk and, show a little bit of weakness if you want, or strength, and, be emotional, and maybe that's going to make for a healthier retirement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. And we obviously have goals while we're in the job, but if we're thinking outside the box in that 30,000 elevation view, the goal is to get safely to our families at the end of the day and to make it to our retirement so we can live off of house money.
Heck yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Any final thoughts, Kristen?
I was just going to tell you, so you have 10 more days left. Are you going to stay with the counseling team, or are you retiring from everything?
No, so I'm actually retiring about a year early because I'm going to work with the counseling team and continue working on wellness in my retirement, because that's how much I started believing in it and realizing the importance of it and how necessary it is in our culture and how much we resist it. So that's what I'm going to be doing for, I don't know, as long as I can.
That's awesome. So the website then, if they want to check up on your training, is thecounselingteam.com. And all of the training courses are on there. And I just have to say, like, it's crazy how God works, and the timing of you coming by our department, and then Melissa and I really pushing for peer support, and then taking your class, and then maybe 2 or 3 months down the line, this tragedy happened, and you guys were like an absolute godsend. Like, I don't know how we would have gotten through it or dealt with it as quote unquote smoothly as we did, because you guys were there within hours of the event happening. And so, I'm just really, really, really thankful for you guys being there, and you being so supportive and just helping guide us when me and Melissa are like, now what are we going to do? What's next? Tell us, all the things. So I just want to say thank you. And I hope that other agencies see the value in it, because like I said, obviously we would have, kept putting one foot in front of the other and kept moving forward to some degree, but I don't think we would have been taken care of as well as we would have without you guys. You guys did a lot.
Thank you. I was truly honored that you guys called and allowed us to be there to help you out. I know the counseling team feels the same way, and we will always be there for you no matter what.
Well, thank you. And thank you for coming on such short notice. We're really bad with that, but I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the whole support team and everything, and just how to be resilient, and that it can be taught slowly but surely and gradually. Just focusing on that, it can be taught. It's a learned trait. So thank you.
You're welcome. You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're an agency that doesn't have a peer support group and you need to talk to somebody, you can reach out to the Counseling Team International. And if you want to start a peer counseling group at your agency, they would be a great organization to help you get the ball rolling. And they'll hook you up with another local agency that has developed their own program. It's what we did. Kristen and Melissa at our agency has taken the lead on developing our peer support group program. And we are up and running now. As Kristen mentioned, things happen for a reason. So if you're listening to this episode and your agency doesn't have a peer counseling program, this might be the signal that you need to get started. So give that some consideration. And I want to thank our guest today, Gabe Lira from the Counseling Team International, who's 10 days away from retiring as a sergeant from a local Southern California agency. So congratulations. And he'll be retiring a year early so he can start fully concentrating on his work in the peer support group. So we're talking about a guy that went from don't cry, you're not allowed to cry in this job, to a guy that's fully bought off on the program. So, and this is a guy that in the short time I've known him, I can attest is somebody that I would totally trust in this world. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for your organization. And we want to thank you for being a guest on our show. And we want to thank our audience for listening. We know you have your choice to listen to just about anybody on your commutes and in your home and in your offices. And we want to thank you for inviting us there and making us a part of your daily lives. So thank you on behalf of the 911 Strong podcast, on behalf of Kristen Jauregui and our guest, Gabe Lira. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the 911 Strong podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.